Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 117 of Percussion Discussion. As usual, I'm going to ask you to check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel where you can see and hear all of our conversations, past and present. If you would prefer to listen on the go, then all of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free, I should say, to download from all of your favorite podcast providers. If you can find a few seconds, please rate and review. Helps us get the message across to other like-minded drummers who hopefully enjoy what we do as much as you do. So there, if you can do that, really helpful. On to today's guest, an incredible American drummer. His name isn't so huge in the UK, but I guarantee you've heard him play on so many songs. He's an incredible drummer, producer, composer. He has worked with the likes of Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Macy Gray, Jennifer Lopez, Bruno Mars. The list goes on and on. LeAnn Rimes. He's played for Stevie Wonder. So he's done a little bit. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome to the show the fabulous Mr. Trevor Lawrence Jr.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, well,
thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And we don't see enough of you over in the UK. We see little bits online. So I've made it my mission to get you on the show. And I have to say, it was a really, really easy task to do once I reached out to you. And, we got it. But so yeah. That's really kind. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, sometimes, people make things look a certain way. I'm an accessible guy, man. I'm busy, yeah, but I could still, answer a DM. It's not that big a deal. I don't have to inflate how busy I am to make myself look bigger than what my life really is. You know what I mean?
Well, do you know what? It's nice to hear because I spend half my life contacting drummers because, I'm 150, 120 shows in now. And it's, I'm
nice.
finding fresh people. Mm-hmm. But some people just obviously see the message and go, oh, we'll just ignore that one. So it's really nice that straight away. So it's appreciated.
Yeah. No, it's easy, man. I mean, we got to keep it going, man. That's important. All over the world, we got to keep this community going.
Definitely. I agree. So you say you're a busy guy. That's obvious. Your career speaks for itself. Your CV speaks for itself. What are you up to at the moment, Trevor? Anything interesting?
Yeah, you know what? I'm doing a lot of writing and producing and playing. One of my closest friends, Terrace Martin, has a new label venture with BMG. And so I'm pretty much, we've been making quite a bit of music that's going to start releasing pretty soon here in the next few weeks to start hearing stuff. So we're constantly in the studio a lot creating these projects with various artists and other things. So I've focused the majority of my time on that because we have quite a bit of stuff we're doing. And then we have an organ trio that we've been doing some shows with called Curly, Terrace, myself, and a guy by the name of Pat Bianchi out of New York. Mm-hmm. We've been traveling with that and doing some shows. And then, just my regular session work. And, I had a movie come out a couple weeks ago on Hulu that I did called White Men Can't Jump. I played on the score for that. And then I had a pretty large, I think it was #1 actually Christian album with a lady by the name of Lauren Daigle, and I played drums and percussion on that whole album. So that's just like stuff that's been happening this year. And then my friend Terrace and Robert Glassford Kamasi have a group called Dinner Party, and I produced a song on their latest record, on Dinner Party's latest record. So, just staying busy, man. And then aside from that, all of my, I'm constantly training and just doing a lot of stuff firearms wise. And then one thing that a lot of people won't know unless you follow me, and this is the first interview where I'm publicly saying that a lot of people don't know. I'm a photographer too.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So my site is up, Trevor Lawrence Jr. Flix, FLIX. So I spend a great deal of time taking photos and editing, especially when I travel. I do a lot of street photography, landscape, some wildlife, but mostly landscape and street photography. on the fine art thing. You won't catch me doing wedding photos or headshots or nothing like that. All, in that. So my site's finally up. I had to take some time to get all that organized and up. So, that's kind of what I do when I'm not in the studio or doing music. I'm making records, because I was in a situation for so long. I mean, I was with Aftermath with Dre from 2009 to basically this year. I kind of, stepped away to pursue other things at the end of last year, well, the beginning of this year. So I've just been doing quite a few other things, while all this is happening, So it's fun, man. I'm in the balance. You know what I'm saying? At this point in my life, when you look at social media and a lot of musicians, there's just this whole persona of just, I'm just in the studio all the time. And, and I had that period. I guess when you're paying your dues, you have that period. But, I also am at a point in my life now where I don't have to do that at that level. So I want to have the time, with my family and the time with my kids, because that's what you can't get back. I can go in the studio all night for the rest of my life if I feel like it, but my kids are only going to be home for a certain amount of time. You know what I mean? So I'm very big on the balance of this industry and life. I'm 20 years next month anniversary with my wife. My kids, I have a senior now and a freshman in high school. And, I'm big on the balance. So as much as I'm big on playing drums and recording and all that, I mean, I'm way deep into that world. I'm just as deep into my family time, and it's just as deep into my photography. It's like I like to put 100% into the things that I'm doing. So it's not one-sided. It's not just drums only. It's drums, songwriting, production. You know what I mean? I'm starting to do a few little teaching things here and there. Like I'll take certain students that, I feel really want to learn something. It's not about sitting at the drums and playing rudiments. I usually never am at the drums when it's teaching. It's all about the other things, because that's the other thing. We're too one-sided. You're still a whole generation of musicians, especially drummers, still don't know what publishing is, still don't know what, writer share is, what performing arts society is. Performing rights society is, still don't really know the way the business works still. And it's 2023, people that graduate school, it's just not, the cycle is not going the right way. We're just focusing on how fast you can play and how ridiculous your setup can be in some instances, and how weird it can be, and how many faces you can smile and stuff so you can get likes. Nobody's talking about the real stuff. And and it's kind of, that's not my mission. So my thing with me is I always want to talk about real things that really are things that you'll come to find in the business, and things that will help you. You know what I mean? And life stuff, not just how, what snare drum I use. I mean, we got a million of those. You know what I mean? So, and I know I'm long-winded. Sorry, bro.
No, you know what? That's my favorite thing when somebody talks. That's my nightmare. My nightmare is 1 or 2 word answers. That's horrible. So,
oh yeah, you won't get that from me.
That's good. That's good. I mean, so it sounds like you've got a really sort of good balance of work and family, and and there's like subdivisions in work then, with photography, with drums, with production, with writing. You've got a healthy all-round mix by the sounds of it.
Yeah, you know what? And a lot of that is because, I learned to split my time. You know what I'm saying? 8 hours work, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours family. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm a member of a very old fraternity, right? So certain things that I've learned by being a member of this fraternity have really changed the way I live my life. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for me, I'm really focused on trying to maximize this time that I have, because it's easy to get sidetracked. There's so much smoke and so much ridiculousness. It's exactly why you don't know me as much as you know a lot of other people, because frankly, I'm not really interested in trying to be a drum star per se, right? It's like, I'm interested in making music. So have I done the UK Drum Festival and Modern Drummer Festival and all? Yeah, I've done all of that stuff, but that's not what I've done as a career. That's always been on the backside, the fact that I do somebody's record, right? So I'm interested in music first, not drums first. I'm interested in music. So I'm a songwriter producer that plays drums.
Yeah.
There's a difference, you know what I'm saying? And I'll announce it first here officially anywhere. A lot of people don't even know we know each other, let alone are as close friends as we are. I have a podcast that I'm getting ready to drop with my dear friend Thomas Lang called TL Squared. And you're going to get a lot of information, you know, and see, it's all real talk. It's no fluff and it's no, you know, it's real talk from two guys that are really knowing each other for 20 plus years, you know. So that's another, you know, forum where I'm going to speak, you know, some of the way we're talking today, just in terms of real stuff. But, you know, I'll let you guide it, man, because I could talk all day, bro. You're gonna have to stop me.
No, I'm happy to listen. And Thomas has been on the podcast as well, and yeah, a great guy, as you said, knowledge beyond belief, as yourself. You know, you've both done so much.
Yep.
So I'll look. Any ideas when that may be coming out?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping maybe 4th of July-ish, you know, maybe mid-July. I'm hoping sometime in July, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we've been shooting for a while, so we're getting close to the tail end of that and you know, just schedule stuff. So I'm hoping that we can get some stuff up, you know, starting sometime in July. That'd be amazing, you know, because I want everybody to get the information, you know, and the stuff, because there's just a lot of stuff that's not real. I've seen this new trend of people that just have never done anything to contribute to the culture or the music, and they make YouTube channels and suddenly there's some authority, but they've never done anything. You know, they're making YouTube videos from, you know, their mother's basement, and they're talking about stuff that they're speculating because they've never done anything, right? So we're seeing a whole generation of that. You know what I mean? You know, the 80-20 guy, okay, bro, like, you know, he's trying to minimize the origin of the clap stack. You know, come on, bro, stop playing. You know what it is. Like, you know, you know, when people do that, man, it doesn't just bother me because it's a personal thing and because it has some other implications behind it. It just bothers me because back in the day, you had to pay your dues to be able to do anything. Yeah. So now, since everybody can do everything themselves, you can make this false sense of, you know, you're some kind of expert. But in every other field, what doctor is an expert doctor that's never performed, you know, had practiced as a doctor?
It's a great analogy. Great analogy.
So you know, so it's like if you've never toured or done anything that really has mattered, what is your knowledge worth? How are you charging people to tell them stuff? I'll tell you how. You get people that really did it on, and then you take all of their information and then you regurgitate it and sell it to other people. And in the middle of that process, it appears like you know the stuff when you're learning it just like they are, because you've never been through it. It's a weird rinse and wash and rinse cycle that's going on right now, man.
I mean, social media has its amazing points, its great points, technology.
Sure.
We can do this, but there's a lot of negatives as well to go with it, you know, as you've pointed out. But I guess you have to take them both, don't you? And just run with it. And
it's here to stay. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so I was going to ask, obviously you do a lot of producing. Are you, which side of the glass are you happiest? Are you with your producer hat on or your drummer hat? Which brings you the most joy, would you say, Trevor?
Well, you know what? I mean, drums is always going to be what I was set out here to do, what started everything, what's gotten me into every conversation, you know, every room, you know, at a certain point. So playing drums is always, you know, it's just part of me. If I don't play drums, I could feel the effect on me as a human being. So that's part of me. But, you know, there's that period in your life when you go from that period where you have to prove yourself, right? And then once you prove yourself, there's another period in your life where, you know, basically like any other goal, it changes. So in the beginning, when I'm trying to establish myself as a drummer, it was drums, 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 drums. But then when I start realizing what the real business is and how much business is out there past the drums, it becomes, okay, let me look at the guys like Narada, you know what I'm saying, who are killer fusion drums, but also wrote Whitney Houston's song. That's what I'm about, right? So the goal moves. So there's some people that are spending their life trying to show I'm the fastest or greatest drummer. That's great. You know what I mean? That's wonderful, you know, but a lot of that's ego. For me, I want to be the most comfortable drummer. I want to be able to do what I'm doing right now, which is nothing if I feel like it. Yeah. And nothing changes in my life. You know, on the internet, we see all these stories and all these people and these things, but no one seems to be doing what they want to do. Everybody's constantly working, and that's great to constantly work. That lets me know that if you don't work, you don't eat.
Yeah.
And the name of the game is income sources and income streams and mailbox money, whatever the level is, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I love both sides of the glass. The later part of my life, definitely the control room side, because that's where all the business is happening. That's where the songs are being written for the most part in most situations, right? You know, it's like I have my rig that I travel with, my laptop rig with all my stuff. It's all dialed in. It's a whole rig. That rig is always in the control room. Sure. That's made a lot of money. The drums are great. You know what I'm saying? And they made a lot of money too, but that rig is a different thing. So do I denounce drums? No, never. But I very much respect that rig and what that rig has been able to bring. So it depends on the situation, because now I'm at the point of my life where even when I'm at the drums, I'm still writing and producing, right? Yeah. So I had to develop that and get to that point where that was possible too. So the true answer in 2023, both sides of the glass for me are equal. But there was that period where, you know, you had to build both sides up to get to that point.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure, totally. And was it, because there's not that many drummers that produce to the level you've done. Was it hard to be taken seriously at first, or was the respect there straight away as a producer? Do you have to? I guess you have to earn it, same as anything else, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember a period where I had to renounce being a drummer, like earlier, you know, because everybody looked at you. Now, understand the business has changed too. So back before the technology was where it is, where you can just have your laptop rig and sit down, or your rig, it was a different thought process, right, to all instruments. Now we've seen DJs be producers. So I feel like that whole persona, you know, that it's changed a lot. But in the early days, it was very compartmentalized, right? So as a drummer, it was almost a joke. It was like, oh, yeah, sure, you're right, of course. Oh, yeah, because you know, until you had something to play, you know, a DAT or a CD or a tape to play, or had some discography of being there, it was like, yeah, sure you are. So I know a lot of guys that are, you know, musicians first that decide they want to be producers, and they kind of slowed that up, stopped going on the road, you know what I'm saying? And some realized it early, you know, and I've seen them just become huge forces as producers. I didn't realize it that early. I feel like I would, if I had it to do over, I would have stopped going on the road probably, you know, when I was right out of college, and just stayed on my session and writing path. But, you know, it is harder for a drummer because most drummers are so caught up with drumming, they don't even know what's going on. Yeah. There's a lot of drummers that don't know how to record their own drums. They don't know how to set up a studio. They don't know about MIDI. They don't know any of the dogs. They're just, how fast can I play? That's just, in 2023, that's unacceptable on any instrument. You know what I mean? So, you know, I play drums and I play percussion, a lot of percussion. I never do it live because I don't want to interfere with my peoples that do that only. But I play percussion for real on a lot of records. That's another skill set that you develop, right? So the whole thing is, how many things can you do? And so producers are just people that basically know all the ins and outs of making a song. That's all we are, really.
You're making,
you know, how to communicate.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You're a guy that knows how to communicate. You know, I mean, most producers are musicians. I mean, there are the few that don't really play anything, that are just producers. That's almost gone. Most producers are some sort of musician, right? So, you know, we just know how to communicate with engineers. You also know how to communicate with the label people and the attorney, and you have your, you know, that's all a producer really is. It's like an advanced musician. It's like a PhD of musicians. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So, or PhD in my case, like a producer that has drums. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I feel like let's just while we're here, let's talk about the word producer and how that's changed, because that has completely been affected by technology. So originally, what most of us do in 2023 with our rigs and our laptop rigs, in 83, you were just called a programmer and you were treated like a musician. And the producer was the one still that was the producer. Songwriters were the songwriter. But because of this all-in-one thing, and people were able to be an all-in-one one-man band and make hit records, right? Now that's opened it up for everybody. So, and that's really a product of hip-hop.
Yeah.
So hip-hop has really changed how music is because of the Dre's and the Timberlands and the Dillas. Like, that's changed how music is done business-wise, and the technology has had a direct impact on that. So, that word producer doesn't always mean you're a songwriter, but in 2023, most of the time it does.
Sure.
If that makes any sense.
It does.
Right.
It does.
Okay.
It does. And if you're producing and it's not you on drums, are you happy to give a drummer a hard time, or because you already play, is it sometimes a bit strange for you that when you got somebody else playing, or are you quite comfortable?
No. Yeah, you know why? Because it's one of the other things the producer has to do is I got to take myself out of it. It's not about me. It's about the song.
Yeah.
My whole thing is it good? Does it make the song sound as good as possible? Then great. If not, well, let me take an attempt, because I feel like I may be able to do something that might make this song a little better. But it's not for any other reason than that if it happens. And rarely does that happen with me. Most of the time, if I'm involved, I'll have something to do with the drum chair. I mean, that's happened very few times. Like if it's a band or a group, maybe. But other than that, it's not really, that usually doesn't happen with me. I'm usually, brought on for that part as well, right?
Yeah.
But, it's no ego, man. You got to take the ego out of it.
And there's one thing that's always fascinated me. I don't have a huge knowledge of hip hop. Obviously, the hits, I hear the stuff that everybody knows.
Sure.
I mean, hip hop has played a huge part in your life, and it always fascinates me. How much live drums is there on like hip hop tracks and albums?
So it's a great question. I mean, we went through the period. It was much more early on, right? A lot of people may know or may not know. Early on, Sugar Hill Records, Dennis was was house rhythm section people, and back in the day on Sugar Hill Records. So, at a period. So early on, we had a lot more hip hop. Through the 90s with the Roots, we had a lot more hip hop in the 90s, drums wise. There was a lot more drums. You had, even songs that may have been programmed, but it still had the drum thing, like the Big Diggable Planet song, which I believe was early 90s, or maybe, it was early 90s, which had a, swing pattern, but it still had drums as a focus. You know what I'm saying? Now, you hear a lot more live drums now, but it's mostly in the fact of in the way of a loop, right? Or something that's been a break or something. So, in 2023, it's not as much as it used to be, but an interesting correlation. This is also the first year since 1993 1993 that there has been no hip hop #1 album or song for an entire year. Wow. So far this year, there's no hip hop #1 song or album on Billboard Top 200. First time since in 30s that's happened. So there's a stagnation happening. It's becoming stagnant. Everything sounds the same. There has to be something that kind of takes a twist. And that thing right now propelling hip hop is actually country. Country now has adopted hip hop elements, and the biggest artist of all artists right now is Morgan Wallen, who has a lot of 808s and things embedded in his country music. So and Jelly Roll, that's actually what's taking hip hop more further than hip hop right now. So people need to start paying attention, because they're not going to promote this, but this is a big metric. 30 years. This is already almost 7 months in the year. There's been no hip hop #1s. That's huge. Yeah. That's a big thing. So where is it going to go? I don't know. Do we still have some big records come out this year? We probably will see some. So we might still have the possibility of it happening. But so far, it's been all country this year.
Sure. That's interesting. I mean, do you
Yep.
think that modern hip hop would benefit from going back to having some live drums on? Because let's be honest, there's more than enough capable drummers, yourself included, who can replicate anything a drum machine can do, and you know, with the technology, you can distress the sounds, you can do whatever you want, can't you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it becomes a thing of time. That's really what all this boils down to, right? Because in the creative process with most hip hop is very reactionary. And I just don't see a lot of hip hop people wanting to take the time it takes to get the drums, live drums down, you know, the imperfections. People got used to the grid and things being quantized because there's a lot of great drum programmers like Dilla was, and a lot of people that I know personally that can make it sound and feel unbelievably, right? So, you know, what people can do with loops now with our time stretching technology, now with the ability to take drums from stereo recordings and just use them, you know, it's that all those things make it a little bit more competitive for a drummer to actually go into a situation against the machine. So, you know, it's possible, but I think the only way we're seeing that is in country. We're seeing that all the time. We're seeing people playing against drum machines all through country music right now. I mean, that's the thing. So I think they've taken that genre's taking it, but hip hop, I don't know. I don't know where hip hop is going because this whole trap thing has taken like all the feeling out, all of the creativity out. It's very, you know, cookie cutter. Cats are using the literal same thing for different songs because it's a preset on Fruity Loops, FL Studio. So you're hearing literally the same sounds, the same patterns. You know, the lyrics are going, is just no thought process because everything's about how fast. Yeah. It's not about quality. It's like, so I don't know what, I feel like hip hop has reached a point and we're seeing that evidence now in the numbers. So I don't know what's going to be the thing to take actual hip hop to another level. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I haven't heard that yet.
Oh, that's really, really interesting. I mean, it just seems a shame because some of the great grooves that we've had over the last 30 years, which would sit great with, you know, everyone, let's be honest, everyone's played at home to hip hop tracks, haven't they? And just,
of course,
get lost in it, don't you?
Yeah. And it got, you know, and rock morphed with it way back in the 90s. So, you know, you had all your Limp Bizkits and all that, you know, House of Pain. And I'll shout out to my homie Everlast. You know, it's like, I mean, we've seen it morph, and let's also study music, right? So we're now entering from the commercially successful point 30 years. We're talking about 40 plus years. So we're talking about 78 for the first hip hop #1. So, you know, that's, you know, that's closer to 50 years, right? So it's like, you know, so we've had it for a long time. That's a very long time for a genre to be #1, right? So if we go back in modern American history, we're talking about 50 years. That means we're talking about before that from 1900 to 1950. So there's no one genre except classical music and jazz that's been around like that. You know, not even rock and roll at that level for 50 years. So maybe we're seeing a shift. Maybe hip hop has hit the pinnacle. I mean, think about it. We just had it at the Super Bowl. I mean, I know I was a part of that, but it's literally saying a lot about the art form too. Yeah. Whereas like, are we in the victory lap now of hip hop as opposed to the needle pushing part of it? Maybe we have now hip hop artists that are the same age as some jazz artists.
Yeah.
So are we now, this is the first generation we've been able to do that since the genre started. So are we there now? Is hip hop the new jazz? I don't know. This is a very interesting period we are in right now, 2023. So we'll see. You know, we will see. The future will tell us what it is.
Watch this space, see what happens. It's interesting. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the Super Bowl. Obviously, in the UK, the Super Bowl halftime thing is still it's still a huge deal. It's not,
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that.
it is, yeah. It's all over social media.
Oh,
People staying up late to watch it, and it's a big deal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, obviously not as big as it is in the States, but
Right.
there's still a huge buzz about it,
Mm,
and people share the videos on Facebook groups and whatnot. So,
mm.
how was that to be part of that, Trevor? It must have been
It
pretty
was
surreal.
great. It was full circle for a lot of reasons, man. Because I'm from LA.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it was it was 2 days before my birthday. Our team made it. Our team won. It was just, like I tell people, and I was working with, guys who are icons, but also guys that were, that I have been working with pretty much exclusively for the last, almost 2 decades. So, and all the experiences that I've had with so many people on that stage, it was just a lot of emotion. It was just a full circle moment for me specifically. It wasn't just a gig, right? It was something I was connected to because I'm from LA. I've seen all these things happen with the NWAs, and so it was just a thing where I tell people the only way I can liken that feeling was to when we had like three-peats with Shaq and Kobe Lakers or with the Magic Lakers. It was like where the city just had a different thing. It was a moment of pride for this city, and that doesn't line up that often, right? So it's like we probably won't see that for another 10 or 20 years where everything lines up like that for something in Los Angeles. Unless, maybe when the Clippers win finally, if they ever win. So it was amazing, man. And it was amazing. I mean, and the other thing that was amazing is that a few songs that were played on the Super Bowl, I mean, I played those same songs with Dre like in 1996 on SNL. So just speaking to that relationship, that was also nearly 30 years from the time that I met him. I met him in 1994. So it was just a lot of stuff coming. It meant more to me than just a gig. It wasn't that at all. It was much deeper than that for me. You know what I'm saying? Personally.
Did you kind of were you able to take it in while you were playing? Were you able to soak it up, or is that a difficult thing to do?
It was mostly when I got home and watched it, because where we were in those structures,
Yeah.
I didn't see what was going on in the back, and that's never even through the run throughs or anything because there's no monitor. So I knew it was crazy. It looked amazing what I was seeing, but just the overall thing, you can't see that until you actually see it. So after the Super Bowl, I had to go to a rap party for another thing I was a part of with some friends of mine, and after I got home from that, I finally watched it. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. It took another meaning. I was like, okay, this looks amazing. So it was just a proud moment. And then the next morning I woke up and flew to Nashville to go do Storytellers with LeAnn Rimes. Completely different world. I just hip hop one day, and then I woke up and it was Americana pop country.
Oh, what a life. But and I have to say, kudos to whoever designs that set and the guys and girls who get that out there in such a short amount of time and get it going. Bro,
that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Like, even in the run through, and a lot of those are regular people that volunteer. These are not professional,
riggers,
stage. No, a lot of that is like people that every year that's what they do at the Super Bowl, and a lot of them, I saw some people that were a little on the older side. It's very amazing how they wrangle those people to do that in that short amount of time. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch. Unbelievable to watch, man.
Because you'd look at that if you didn't know the setting it was in and the environment it was in, and you'd say that's taken a good few days to set that up,
right?
And it's in the blink of an eye almost.
I think it's something like 3 or 6 minutes total. It's just like, and there's sound that happens, there's lights, there's the set, all of that. And it's like, you see him backstage, because we run through it, quite a bit leading up to it. And it's just like, dude, and and it takes, and it's not, in the beginning, it's not there, so there's also, when you first start running through it, they're like, we gotta shave off, X amount of minute, and then to see the evolution of that, and the guy that is over that, he's been doing it for years, and he does all these pep talks and all this stuff. And then by the end, they got it. You know, it's crazy, man. It's
So,
crazy.
so you rehearse it as it's going to be in an empty stadium. They bring everything out, and you're making sure your monitors are good and everything. You rehearse everything like that.
Yeah. So, you know, we rehearse off site for a while and get the show together, rehearse off site, and then we rehearse at a simulated place, at a hangar, airplane hangar.
Sure.
So it's the space, you know, and that's just with stuff, you know, semi in place, you know. Then we rehearse at the actual stadium, you know, and you know, and you know, I guess I heard at the stadium they were playing rock music out in the parking lot, so nobody knew what the show was, you know. So
the mask it, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
and I have to talk about the beautiful white drum set that you were playing on. Was that just a bit of good luck that you had that, or did you have to have that made?
So okay, so thankfully, I mean, if you now after we have this conversation, you're going to go back and realize, oh, wait a second, maybe it wasn't that beautiful. So what happened was I had my set made. It was very elaborate, you know, set, crazy. It had like we all agreed on like a black vibe. We all agreed on like black kind of. So I had this. I'm actually looking at the kit I had made because it's now here in my studio. But it was like I did like a black sparkle thing, black nickel hardware, black, you know. And so maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks before I get a call from Adam, the MD, Adam Blackstone, like, yo, bro, they just changed everything to white. And this is like the day after I had got my drums.
And this drum,
and
this
so I
was
like,
for the show, right? This was made for.
Yeah, yeah. And they said, and I said, okay, cool, man. Well, you know, I told DW, I said, hey, man, I'm sorry, they just changed it on me. I was like, don't worry about it. I have a white set, so I'll send that. So I was like, hey, you know, I'll send one of my white sets down there, no problem. They're like, no, bro. They're gonna buy a set from, you know, I think Sweetwater, and they're gonna spray paint it. So that is literally the cheapest PDP kit, spray painted all over the whole kit.
Really?
All Super Bowls are pre-records, bro.
Yeah, of course.
There's never been. Yeah. So, you know, we're lip syncing anyway. So that is literally the lowest level PDP kit you can find. And all the parts that were chrome, they just spray painted the entire kit. I had Remo bring down some of those heads with no sound. And I did have them make the front bass drum head. And then, you know, I mean, I had a clap stack up there, you know, and double cymbals, you know, but that is, and the other thing is, my original kit would have never made it. The whole kit wouldn't have fit in there anyway, because we didn't know all these dimensions. You know, that stuff is all happening but to give them enough lead time, I had to order the kit as soon as I got the call, right? So, you know, I'm realizing, I mean, I would have had a condensed version of it. I mean, I could have fit, you know, a 4-piece of it or a 5-piece, but the big kit that I actually had made would have never fit in there anyway, you know? So it was like, you know, it's just you realize that the emphasis is definitely not on the drums. You know what I'm saying? It's on the overall look and the vibe and the feeling. It's not about who cares what drums you have, bro. We don't care about that. The higher ups could care less about that. You know what I mean?
That's interesting because it looked really cool on the video, and I thought that looks great. That looks And then you find out,
man. Yeah, bro.
There you go.
It's tough, and you know they were breaking, man. The snare head was like ripped from all the rehearsals. And it was just like no bounce, you know, and I was trying to just stay into it, you know, but hey man, we made it through. You know what I'm saying?
So what happened to the kit afterwards then? Does it just go somewhere to die, or
you know what? I was wondering, I asked about it and somebody said they wanted to keep it. It was probably somebody's stagehand that just said, I'm gonna take it home. You know, I don't know. We didn't sign anything, but you know, I took the heads off. I have the actual heads. And the actual Super Bowl head, and then you know, my car just came and got all the cymbal stands and my cymbals, but I don't know where those drums went, man. They're probably at Hard Rock somewhere. Who knows?
You won't miss them then.
No, not at all. Yep.
Oh well, look, we have to touch on the clap stack because that's your baby.
Okay.
And it's been out what 5 or 6
5 years now. 5 years. 5 years. Yeah. Yep. 5.5.
What was the idea behind it? Was that something you particularly wanted, rather than because I mean,
so
kind of an 808-esque sound? Would you
exactly? So so it started. The idea started back in 2005 when I was playing with Jennifer Lopez, and we used to have big refrigerator racks, and I had all these triggers and all this stuff. And, you know, you would rehearse and everything was great. But when you're rehearsing, there's no front of house. So you're rehearsing in a controlled environment. So everything was wonderful, right? You know, clap triggers, this. But when we got to the first show with the front of house at a stadium and all that rumbling, all of a sudden you're hearing all this double triggering like on ballads and all this stuff that we didn't want there because of the vibrations, right? So I realized, I was like, you know what? I wish there was a way I could just have a clap that was acoustic. That was the first thing in my mind, like, because that is one of the most, you know, if we're going to trigger something, that's usually one of the most triggered sounds. So that was the preliminary thought. So there's years of me trying to get to that, and even some records documenting that. There's a record by Alicia Keys called Go Ahead, and in the middle section, I took all these cymbals and I was stacking them, and I was doing all these overdubs with a surdo, you know, Brazilian drum, and all these stacked cymbals to try to get a "We Will Rock You" effect, and it kind of did it, but it still was more trashy than clap. So, long story short, when I left Meinl, I went to Istanbul, and one of the first things I talked with my guy Scott over there, who's a real guy. He knows cymbals really well, but he knows music really well. He used to be A&R at a record label, so we connect. It's not any fluff. It's always what's going to be dope sonically, right? It's what's. So I brought the idea to him, and then we just R&D'd it for a while, and then we finally locked in on it. And I think I had a different name. He kept saying that. I was like, nah, I don't know if that's going to be the name. That shouldn't be it, you know. And finally, it stuck, and then it made sense. And then at that NAMM, you know, we had it at that NAMM, and it was okay, you know what I'm saying? But maybe that was probably 2018 NAMM, so it was starting to pick up some traction in 2019. But by 2020, when everybody was at home, whatever the reason is, it just started going crazy. And in the interim of those 2 years, you did have some big drummers picking it up. You know what I'm saying? My boy Chris Dave, shout out to Chris. He was one of the first guys in that world to kind of put it forefront and, you know, and support. You know what I'm saying? And then you had a lot of people that even now to this day, huge names that still play our clap stack that are with different cymbal companies, because it's not nobody's trying to take you from your cymbal company. If you like the way this thing sounds, then you use it. Nobody else has made one that sounds good. It looks like it, but it doesn't sound as good. So we don't usually tend to care about that when it's a, you know, cowbell, or if it's some odd little thing. Nobody says anything. But with this, it's like, oh, you can't go with another company. But it's a real thing, man. I mean, that's a legacy thing. So that'll be here when I'm gone. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, you know, we started a whole new genre because everybody's now copying it. And before that, there was no new genre of cymbals. We had crashes, you know, variations, but we had crashes, rides, hi-hats, and chinas and that stuff. We didn't have this. So now everybody has one. It kind of revolutionized cymbals and drums. And for some odd reason, I can't quite put my hand on it. Nobody wants to credit me with that except a few people. It's a very funny thing, but we all know what it really is, but we don't have to go that deep on your show. But the reality is, man, you know, those who know, you know what I mean? And when I see people that try all this Jedi mind trick stuff, like I stumbled across that guy on YouTube the other day, you know, and he was trying to say, oh, I'm going to interchange the names. I mean, they're just the same. No, they're not, bro. This was first, and Meinl copied it X amount of years later. Just call it what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big deal. We know that we're there now. We know there's a million copies of it, but stop it with the trying to rewrite history. Yeah. Just stop it. It's just, you know, you're like Florida right now. You're like DeSantis right now. Stop it, man. You know, so every time I see somebody, I say something. You know what I'm saying? And one thing, as you know, got real public back in November, and it became a real thing. But hey, man, it needed to be said. And I'll say it again. Like, it's just, don't lose sight of reality. Sometimes you get a little success on these platforms and these cats lose sight of reality. Don't lose sight of reality. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're still grown men talking. So my whole thing is, don't say anything on social media that you wouldn't say standing right in front of me. You see what I'm saying? That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, lots of respect for that. And it's a great sounding cymbal. And I know you've done a few Ed Sheeran records. Did you use that on, was it Galway Girl?
Only one. Yeah, that's it. Only one. That was the first recording.
Right. Okay.
First recording. That's that in that little bridge breakdown section. That was the first recording. My brother Mike Elizondo produced that. That was the first recording.
And that's the clap stack on that. Yeah, is that the
Yeah, I mean, that was my prototype. I still literally have that one, and I use that one all the time. Yes, sir.
And is that as it sounded, or is it been layered, or is that just the claps? Because it sounds so cool.
Yeah, I'm sure they processed it later. I don't think I doubled it, but I mean, I'm sure they, processed it in the mix or whatever. But yeah, man, no, that was that, and it was like, like it was like a floor tom clap stack type vibe on that section.
Right.
But I mean, it started. I mean, I wish I did more records with Ed, but that we did a live thing, but only record wise. That's the only record. So but yeah, man, like it's just one of those things, man, where it's just a blessing, and I look at it like having like a single that just constantly keeps doing well. There's a single that just stays on the charts every year. You know what I mean?
That's the kind you want.
Yeah. So shout out to Istanbul Agat, my boy Scott, and all of our folks. We did that, So,
Trevor, before we go, I'm not letting you go without talking about Live 8 and Stevie Wonder. 2005.
Hey, man, that was probably the greatest and most embarrassing drum moment of my life, because there's 1 million people present in Philadelphia, and I got started over on a song. But there was a reason behind it, so it wasn't all the way my fault. Basically, on the set list, there was a song that was a cue of a DAT that was left out.
Yep.
So, on the set list, right? So it's probably understood, but for whatever reason, I didn't get the memo. So I'm looking at the set list. So I went right into the next song, and it was like, oh, hold on. And, and so I stopped, and it was like, what's going on? And then the song comes on the DAT. It's importance of making sure your set list is together. But other than that, I mean, that was amazing, man, to be present in front of a literal 1 million people there. It's like, as far as you can see, it's just people. It's a crazy experience. And, what it was for, it was just, cool to be connected with, live Farm Aid and, the original Live Aid. Yeah. And then I did the next one too, a couple years later in Giant Stadium called Live Earth. That was the one with Al Gore. I did that with Alicia Keys like 3 years later.
Yeah.
So that was cool to be a part of those moments. The Police was on that show, and because they'll always live on YouTube or whatever. So it's great to have been a part of those moments, man.
And you played one of my favorite Stevie Wonder songs. So What's the Fuss? Great. What an underrated song. I find that one. It's such a great song.
Yeah. People don't know that's Prince playing rhythm guitar. You know what I'm saying? So that's Prince.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was like, and so that I was with Stevie probably from 2003 to about 2006. I mean, there's a deep family connection with him and my family, and that's a gig I could have still be on right now today. But I've never been that kind of guy that wants to say, oh, I've been with so-and-so 20 years. I like pushing things forward. So, it was great time we had, but I moved on and did other things. And, I like to keep it fresh. I don't want to just keep playing the same things unless, if I have ownership in those things, that's one thing, but I don't own any of that catalog. So I have to, I have to keep promoting things that I have a part of. You know what I mean?
Tell me, is it hard to finish with somebody like Stevie Wonder? Is it? Obviously, when you talk about icons, they don't get much bigger than him. Is it hard to call it a day and say, look, I'm moving on, or is it quite a?
It happens more organically. I mean, in that case, I remember there was someone else calling me for a tour, and this is where it's crazy. So I had heard he was doing some dates, and the reason I heard is because my grandfather, who's passed now, but he was a very famous gospel singer in a group called the Dixie Hummingbirds, who was a huge influence on Stevie, which is why our family is so close. So I heard through that side that they were doing the show and that Stevie was on the show, but Stevie's people hadn't called me, and this other artist was calling me saying, hey, I need to know. So I had to make the decision, and I went with the other artist. And then, of course, they did the show with Stevie, later. And I would have been able to be on stage with my grandfather, and I missed it. So, after that, I kind of just kept, I just stayed with what I was doing and just, I never went back after that. So it just happens organically. He'll never have a shortage, and Stanley's killing that
Oh,
gig. So,
big time.
that's his gig. I mean, he's like the new Jerry Brown on that gig where he'll do it till the wheels fall off, so, it's fine, man. I did it. And like I said, I didn't get the chance to write the Stevie. I have this 360 thing that I kind of live by. So I like to deal with the artist on all the levels, right? So for most people I work with, it's everything. But with him, I didn't get a chance to write with him. But I did play on his last record, and I did, tour with him. So that's 2 out of the 3. I try to, once I get in there with an artist, if there's anything possible, take the relationship to all the dimensions of what I can bring to the table. So in a writing way, in a touring way, and in a session way. That's what I try to do with everybody I work with, if it makes sense.
The triple threat.
Yeah, I try to. It's just 360, man. Why not get the most out of the relationship, right? If possible.
Hey, and look, before we go, time's almost beaten us. We need to talk about the T-shirt.
Yeah. Hey man, look, shout out to I think I got this from my guys over at Redstone Firearms. I think this is Redstone Firearms out in Burbank, one of the only black-owned firearms shops in California, maybe even in the country, one of a few. But this is one of their shirts. Like I said, I mean, this shout out to JP, that's JP Rifles, where I shoot for competition.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's a hobby. Also, aside from, the self-defense aspect and the protection aspect, but it's also a hobby because I do shoot competitions.
Sure.
So it's a sport as well. So, it's just another thing I do away from music. I mean, I know it's different in the UK, very different. But as you know, here we do have a constitution and it permits us, if you are a qualified person and a non-prohibited person, to own and possess firearms if you're responsible about it. And I definitely take advantage of my right to do so. I'm very, 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 very deep in that world. And I am, I've done a lot of licenses and qualifications and all this compliance to be able to do that. So, it's a fun thing. And there's a historical aspect because a lot of people don't know when you're in America, Black people used to not be permitted to have firearms. So that was something that was done, which, because obviously, things were different at a certain period. So now there's been a 500%, boom in the African American community since around the time of the pandemic on gun ownership. So not only did I want to be an owner, that's kind of easy to be an owner, but I was like, you know what, let me learn myself so I can also be an instructor, right? So I went and got my credentials as a, certified instructor for handguns. And then I'm also what's called a chief range safety officer. So I can go to any gun range in America and basically, be the range safety officer if I wanted to. I didn't do it to do it as a profession, but I wanted to be able to. And then, the competition side, I mean, that's just fun. And, it's just something to do other than music, because during the pandemic, wasn't a lot of music stuff going on, but all the ranges were open because of the federal law. So I could go to the range all the time, but, a lot of other stuff wasn't happening. So, it was a fun time to take advantage of all that stuff. And, it's very relaxing. People don't understand that. It's like when you shoot a firearm, I know it sounds crazy, but it is very therapeutic and relaxing.
Like a release.
So, oh man, it's so mellow. Like when I go to the range, I was at the range yesterday. I told my wife, I'm heading home from therapy. She's like, oh, the range? It's like, yeah,
Oh, amazing. Just fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Well, it sounds like you have an incredibly balanced work, family, hobby kind of life, which is perfect, isn't it, really? And I guess you're not afraid to turn things down anymore. If something's not right for you, you'll just say no, and that's that, I guess.
Yeah, no, I tell people all the time, the most powerful word in your vocabulary is no, not yes.
Yeah.
Because that career path, the optics and the things, that's a very tricky thing. You got to know what to say no to, because this is a business not like any other business where other businesses, you get accolades, you get get promotions, you get degrees, you get pay scales changed. For us, you could be 60 years old still doing a $50 gig. No one's ever going to tell you not to do that.
Sure.
Right? So it's all about how you present yourself. And if you come off as I'm a gigger, that's it, I'm a side man, I don't want to be a part of any of the creative process, then that's what you'll be. Yeah. It's easy. And that's easy. Everybody wants somebody that's cheap and accessible. Yeah. That's easy. You can work all the time. If you're on time, don't charge a lot, and you're always available. Well, you can work all the time. Sure. My dad always told me there's two kind of players, creative and jukebox. So I like to I'm more on the creative side. We all have a part of the jukebox in us, but I'm 70-30.
Look, Trevor, this has been an absolute pleasure. It really has. And I can't thank you enough for giving up your busy time to do it. It's appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks for having me and thinking about me. And, maybe we'll do it again sometime. Some other milestone happens.
I hope so. I really do. So enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Happy drumming. Happy.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.